benefits the President of the United States and his administration. Statue of Liberty was just a symbolic, very nice gesture by France, but it's not in the same category. Patrick on a message boards, Bill, you have been and continue to be spot on with regards to what's unfolding in the Trump presidency. Many who do not support him still don't understand him. Ones who hate him don't care to understand. That is absolutely true. If he pulls this economic thing off, he'll go down as one of the most successful presidents in history. I agree. So Donald Trump, if he gets what he wants for a prosperous America, he'll go down. He'll be right in the Reagan category, despite all the other stuff. Jacqueline, message board, I'm confused regarding U.S. drug prices being higher than Europe. You said this is because of tariffs. But if these drugs are manufactured in the USA, they should be cheaper here. No, because the drug companies can't get into Germany or Italy or any of the EU countries or other countries around the world unless they agree to a certain price for a certain drug. So Germany says, we're not going to take it. You're not going to be able to sell your drug here. So the U.S. drug companies go, all right, we'll charge this, which is much lower than here, because here they make up the money because they can charge whatever they want. Here, see, that's why we pay the higher drug price. In a moment, something you might not know. Our healthcare system is a mess. You know that. You wait weeks for a doctor's appointment, get 5 minutes there, then face delays, insurance, red tape. It's slow, frustrating, and it's why all family pharmacy stands out in the madness. All family pharmacy believes in medical freedom, meaning you decide what works for your health, not some agency or insurance company. Ordering is simple, no waiting rooms, pharmacy lines. Just go online, place your order, and get medications delivered right to your door. They offer 200 medications, including ivermectin and antibiotics, plus emergency kits, customized orders, even bulk buys. More than 100,000 Americans already trust All Family Pharmacy. It's time you check them out. So please go to allfamilypharmacy.com/Bill. Use promo code BILL10 for 10% off. Take your health into your own hands. That's allfamilypharmacy.com/Bill, code BILL10.
Dr. Randy Tobler here, and I know that when you're looking for a dentist, you have to make sure you choose a dental practice that's compatible with you and the needs of your family. Well, I'd like to tell you about my dentist, Dr. Dan Cusimano, and his partner, Megan Dwyer, and their team at Advanced Dentistry at St. Charles. The great team at Advanced Dentistry of St. Charles can accommodate all of your cosmetic and restorative needs because their passion is general dentistry. Implants, crowns, bridges, even dentures. That what you need the most is what they'll provide in a personalized, focused way. And they can provide therapeutic and cosmetic options like Botox and dermal fillers. Get to know them and all they have to offer by calling 636-978-0226 or visit them on the web at advanceddentistrynow.com. That's Dr. Daniel Cusimano and Dr. Megan Dwyer at Advanced Dentistry of St. Charles.
That's Advanced Dentistry Now, 636-978-0226. Or visit them on the web at advanceddentistrynow.com.
Now the O'Reilly update brings you something you might not know. 147 years ago today, a man in eastern Massachusetts was accused of conspiring with the devil. His criminal prosecution would be the final chapter of America's darkest saga. Here is the story behind the last witch trial in the United States. The whole affair began in early 1878. In the small town of Ipswich near Salem, there was a conflict between two followers of the Christian Science religion. That group shunned modern medicine, believing all healing could only be achieved through prayer. 50-year-old Lucretia Brown brought the accusation against Daniel Spofford, a fellow member of the Christian Science faith. She said he used the art and the power of his mind to injure her spine. That rhymes. Well, the trial began on May 14th, 1878. The case garnered widespread attention from the media because of the original Salem witch trials in the 17th century. Despite this new worldwide spectacle, the trial was nothing more than a few boring legal procedures. In fact, the accused man never even showed up in court. The judge ultimately dismissed the case, arguing the complaint was, quote, framed without basic knowledge, unquote. I guess they could not subpoena the devil. The court also dismissed that it had any jurisdiction over allegations of sorcery and Satan worship. The woman actually appealed the case, but got nowhere. Both parties were publicly ridiculed as superstitious and unsophisticated. It was the last time a person was accused and tried for witchcraft in America. Ms. Brown died in 1929 at the age of 76. The alleged sorcerer, Mr. Spofford, died 1 year later. He was 82 years old. For the real story behind the horrifying original Salem witch trials, please check out my best-selling book, Killing the Witches. Back in a moment. Crime at an all-time high, so you might already own a firearm, but less lethal options can avoid the financial and mental repercussions of pulling the trigger of a gun. Like Byrna's less lethal launchers, designed to incapacitate attackers with tear gas and kinetic ammunition. Even better, Byrna just announced their all-new compact launcher. It's the same size as a smartphone, fires at 400 feet per second to deliver a hit like a sledgehammer. The compact launcher pairs maximum concealability with maximum force. Plus, more than 80% of its components are sourced right here in the USA and hand-assembled in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Byrna is legal in all 50 states, requires no background checks, can be shipped to your door and trusted by police departments and government agencies worldwide. So please visit Byrna.com today. That's BYRNA.com. Thank you for listening to the O'Reilly Update. I am Bill O'Reilly. No spin, just facts, and always looking out for you.
KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Bellefonte, KNBS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1, and always streaming at newstalkstl.com.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters in Washington. The House Ways and Means Committee approved the Republican sweeping tax package Wednesday after a marathon hearing. Correspondent Bernie Bennett has more.
Approval came on a party line 2619 vote and sends the bill to the Chamber's Budget Committee. Lawmakers there will combine it with spending cuts legislation produced by other committees in preparation for floor action. At the same time, Republican leaders appear to be edging closer to a deal with a handful of holdouts, upset with the bill's hike in a limit on state and local tax deductions to $30,000 from the current $10,000. Some Republicans from high-tax states call that inadequate and have been threatening to kill the legislation. Bernie Bennett in Washington.
Democrats are down in the dumps following last November's elections. White House correspondent Greg Clugston reports.
According to a new AP NORC poll, Democrats are deeply pessimistic about the future of their party. The level of optimism is down sharply from last July, about the time President Biden dropped his re-election bid. Democrats are seeking momentum after losing the White House and both chambers of Congress. The survey also finds neither major political party is viewed favorably by the majority of U.S. adults. Greg Clugston, Washington.
President Trump says he urgently wants to make a deal with Iran to wind down its nuclear program, but he says Tehran must end its support of proxy groups throughout the Mideast as part of any potential agreement. Trump's in the midst of a three-country visit to the region. On Wednesday, he discussed Iran's rapidly advancing nuclear program in one-on-one talks with Qatar's emir. The American president expressed measured confidence that the U.S. effort with Tehran would work out one way or another. On Wall Street, a mixed day as the Dow was down by 89 points. The Nasdaq rose 136. More at townhall.com.
Healthcare is complicated. It doesn't have to be. If you don't love how your health insurance works, maybe it's time to leave traditional health insurance behind. Take charge of your healthcare with Christian Healthcare Ministries. CHM offers you flexibility. Enroll anytime, choose your own provider, and select the program that fits your needs and budget. CHM is the original faith-based way of taking care of your medical bill costs. Learn more at chministries.org/wellness.
If you're living with pain, see how Relief Factor can help.
My back got injured very bad. I was off work for about a year. I heard about Relief Factor from my wife. I took it every day, 3 times a day for 3 weeks. Looked at her and I said, the pain is gone. And she said, I'm glad it helped. I said, no, you don't understand. It's gone.
Fight pain naturally with Relief Factor. Go to relieffactor.com and get your 3-week quick start today. Only $19.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm First Alert 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton. This evening, a spot shower or sprinkle, not out of the question, but most are going to stay dry and warm. Overnight, a low of 69 degrees, mostly sunny in the morning. A hot day Thursday, a high of 92. The record's 94 from 1944. There is a slight chance for an isolated storm in the evening, mainly east and southeast of St. Louis. Between about 5 to 9 p.m., we'll watch for that. Storms may not even pop, but if they do, it could be strong, again, mainly south and east of St. Louis. Otherwise, Friday is a First Alert weather day with our better chance for storms. Dry in the morning, but a high of 89 and scattered storms in the afternoon that could be severe, anywhere from 1 to 8 p.m. Be on guard for severe threat Friday. That's the latest from the First Alert 4 Weather Center. I'm Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
This hour of News Talk STL brought to you by Chris Cooper and Serenity Wealth Management. Discover little-known strategies that could be the difference between choosing the care you deserve or having someone else decide it for you. Get a free copy of Chris's book at serenityltc.com.
Another RX Watch, brought to you by Onder Law.
There's an evil new twist in the tragic story of baby powder and its link to ovarian cancer. Recently uncovered documents reveal that talc can contain asbestos.
The same asbestos that we know causes mesothelioma.
Right, and ovarian cancer.
In the 1970s, the industry wrote its own rules, allowing Johnson & Johnson to claim that its talc was asbestos-free, as long as it contained less than 1% asbestos.
Of course, Johnson & Johnson helped write those rules. So while we're using hazmat suits to remove the asbestos from our homes, Johnson & Johnson was telling women it's safe for their bodies.
Unbelievable. So if you've used talcum powder for feminine hygiene and contracted ovarian cancer, call Onder Law at 1-800-RX-WATCH.
They've already won several large verdicts against Johnson & Johnson for women just like you.
Call Onder Law at 1-800-RX-WATCH. That's 1-800-RX-WATCH or go to rxwatch.com.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertisements.
If you have a phone, you have a radio.
Yes, I listen on my phone.
Download the all-new News Talk STL app.
Love the all-new News Talk STL app.
It is awesome.
And listen anytime.
Love the News Talk STL app.
Anywhere. Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
The more you remove voting from Election Day, the more opportunity you're offering for people to commit fraud.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
I think the Democrats are so short-sighted in this tactic they have now to just cheat at any cost to win elections.
You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier. You said you were, but now you got to be honest. I'm going to be honest with you.
What are we doing wrong here? As a former leader in the House, I think you can put your finger on it. It's called leadership. We don't have it.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
The president's agenda and the future of birthright citizenship are on the line tomorrow in high-stakes arguments before the U.S. Supreme Court. At issue here is not birthright citizenship itself, but instead the question of the power of the lower courts and whether they have the judicial authority to issue a nationwide ban on Trump's move to end the constitutionally guaranteed right. A question that could have widespread implications.
406 and welcome into the Wednesday, May 14th edition of the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show. Big case being heard tomorrow, as you heard there with the clip coming in, Tim. And we're really fortunate that we have our legal eagle here on Wednesday to kind of give us a heads up on what's going to be happening with that case. We usually talk to him at 4:25, but he is on a plane, Tim. He's assured me he's not flying to Newark. and we'll get to him and start the show. How you doing, by the way, sir?
Doing great up here in Studio Schroer. Chris, they have brought the pro-life proposal back to the Senate floor. That occurred about 3 hours ago. My sources are telling me this could be the beginning of the end of the session. That previous question signature pages are being circulated as we speak, and the Senate may move to end the filibuster on the pro-life proposal, the Proposition A fix, and the Second Amendment Preservation Act reform bill as well. Could be a lot of fireworks late tonight and throughout tomorrow.
And we'll get more into that as the show progresses. But as I said, we have our legal eagle on the line. Let's get to him.
Oh, it's all perfectly legal. You are out of order. You're out of order. You're out of order. The whole trial is out of order.
Zack Smith, legal fellow with the Heritage Foundation. You know, I ask you a lot of predictions. Can you predict what the Supreme Court probably will do with this action?
Zack Smith, my friend, where in the world is Zack Smith and where is he traveling, if you don't mind?
Well, I am in our nation's capital in Washington, D.C. today. Actually, I have an event I need to go to this evening, so I appreciate you guys being accommodating and getting me on a little earlier.
Of course. Well, you heard that clip coming in. The big the hearing or the case will be heard tomorrow in the Supreme Court on birthright citizenship. This has been around for a while, Zach, and I got to tell you, when this first came up, I was like, come on, this is a no-brainer, you know, and I know it's not directly deciding that, but the whole case of birthright citizenship, I thought it was clear-cut in the Constitution. This is a no-brainer, but you've made some pretty good arguments on past cases that this could be a new precedent. Tell us what's happening tomorrow, sir.
Yeah, look, this is one of the last cases the court will hear this term. Certainly, it's going to be one of the most closely watched ones. And you are absolutely right, Chris. Even though the underlying issue on the merits is whether birthright citizenship is required by the Constitution's 14th Amendment, that's not really, I suspect, going to be the focus of the arguments tomorrow. The predominant focus of the arguments will likely be whether or not lower federal courts have the power to issue so-called nationwide injunctions. You may remember the Trump administration has faced a number of injunctions, orders from lower federal courts, essentially ordering them to take or not take certain actions. Now, historically, those types of injunctions, judges have only issued those as applying to the parties in front of them in the particular cases and issues being litigated before those judges. Yet, in the past decade or so, and particularly over the past several years, during the first Trump administration, now during the second administration of Donald Trump, we've seen lower federal courts really using nationwide injunctions exponentially more than they ever have before. And they're essentially ordering the federal government not to take certain actions against anyone at any place at any time. That's a very broad reading of the federal judicial power. It's one that would have been antithetical to the founding fathers, the framers of our Constitution. So it'll be very interesting to see how the arguments shape up and play out tomorrow.
Zach, speaking of legal decisions, yesterday, a federal court district judge upheld Donald Trump's authority to deport criminal migrants under the much maligned, by the left that is, Alien Enemies Act. Zach, what can you tell us about that decision? And because we now have a split decision in the circuits, do you think that this case will be heading sooner than later to the Supreme Court?
Well, I suspect it will be heading to the Supreme Court at some point in time. The interesting thing to watch, Tim, will be whether or not the court will take it up on its so-called shadow docket, its emergency docket, and decide it very quickly. The case that the court is hearing tomorrow on birthright citizenship is in a somewhat unique procedural posture. It did come to the court through its emergency docket. It didn't go through the normal appellate process where typically you get several lower court decisions, where there's a petition for certiorari, request to the court to take up the case. That's not how the birthright citizenship case got to the court. And so when I was talking to Chris just a minute ago and telling him that, it'll probably focus mostly on that nationwide injunction issue, that procedural issue, It probably will, but they could get into the marriage too. And there's some uncertainty about how that will shape up and play out tomorrow because of the unique posture of the case. And so if the court were to decide to take up this Enemy Alien Act type issue on the emergency docket as well, it really could lead to some unique procedural questions at the same time.
Speaking with Zack Smith, Senior Legal Fellow at the Heritage Foundation, heritage.org. Zack, I'd never heard of the Court of International Trade until yesterday when I read a report about 4 businesses there are challenging President Trump using the Emergency Economic Powers Act to implement these tariffs. The 3-judge panel, I think I read that it is a Trump, Obama, and Biden judge on that 3-judge panel. What can you tell us more about this case?
Yeah, the Court of International Trade, it's not a particularly well-known court, but it is a very important court. It is an Article 3 court, means that the judges go through the normal confirmation process. They have life tenure. And basically, this court decides trade disputes, as its name suggests. If you go back to the late 1800s, the 1890s or so, this court originated as essentially a version of the Customs Board that was settling trade disputes. It was kind of a regulatory type agency, an in-house tribunal for many years. And it really wasn't until the mid 20th century that you saw the procedures start to be more court-like. And then ultimately, this Customs Board being spun off into its own independent Article 3 court. So it's unique in that even though the court is based out of New York City, that's where the judges sit, it can hear cases anywhere in the country. It can even hear certain cases internationally if the statute allows. And so it certainly is getting a lot of attention in this case because it is deciding whether President Trump has the power to unilaterally impose certain tariffs. But keep in mind, Chris, this isn't the only case challenging whether or not the president has the power to issue those tariffs. There's also one that's been filed in my home state of Florida, challenging the tariff action as well. And so it'll be very interesting to watch and see what happens if conflicting decisions come out of those courts. And once again, this could be an issue that the Supreme Court is asked to weigh in on a somewhat expedited basis.
Zack, as usual, our beloved AOC is in the news, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. This time, she's not flying around the country, Zack, with Bernie Sanders on a fossil-fueled jet, talking about the horrors of climate change. Zack, she's encouraging and helping illegal aliens learn how to skirt federal laws. Zack, this caused a little bit of a back and forth between her and Tom Homan. There's an allegation that the DOJ may be probing AOC for her holding a webinar meant to help migrants deal with ICE agents. Zack, wouldn't it be great if Congress, Democrats and Republicans, would actually propose legislation if they have a problem with our current federal laws as to illegal immigration versus trying to pretend they don't exist, or worse yet, like AOC is doing, trying to teach people how to skirt them?
Well, Tim, do you mean we expect our legislators to actually legislate? How outrageous! What a novel idea! I can't believe you'd suggest something so radical as that. But look, unfortunately, I think this is par for the course. We've seen other Democrats doing these kind of performative stunts, if you will. We saw several Democratic members of Congress going to an ICE detention facility, other Democratic officials who, frankly, are now, I think, in danger of receiving federal criminal charges as a result of some of their actions against federal law enforcement officials there, some of their attempts to obstruct the ability of those officials to carry out their duties. Look, I think we're seeing more of that now. I think it's unfortunate. And I do hope that the House, members of both parties, will look seriously at imposing some consequences on members who so blatantly disregard the law and so blatantly, frankly, disrespect members of our law enforcement. I know there's some talk about potentially stripping some of those Democratic members of their committee assignments or imposing other penalties. And I think that's a conversation that very much needs to be had. Look, I think we can debate, we can disagree, we can do it without violating the law or without, again, engaging in physical contact or quasi-physical altercations with our law enforcement officers. That is an unfortunate escalation that needs to stop immediately.
Zack, speaking of skirting the law and radical, I want to get your thoughts on a federal grand jury indicting that Wisconsin circuit judge for helping the illegal alien evade arrest from her courtroom. It's in Milwaukee County, very, very liberal. I know you don't make predictions either, but what do you see? What do you see this? Where do you see this case?
Well, look, the federal indictment certainly doesn't paint this Milwaukee state court judge in a very flattering light. I think these are very credible charges that have been brought against her. Now, she has moved, from what I've seen, to dismiss the charges against her, claiming that she has absolute immunity as a judge to run her courtroom as she sees fit, also raising some 10th Amendment claims as well. So we'll have to wait to see how that plays out. Now, I have seen it reported, I haven't looked at the official docket, that her case has been assigned to Federal District Court Judge Lynn Adelman. Judge Adelman, I believe, is a Clinton appointee. He is very liberal, to put it frankly. He has written some very incendiary in the past. In fact, I and one of my colleagues have been fairly critical of Judge Adelman in the past about some of the things he has written for taking really an unjudicious tone, stepping beyond the proper bounds of his role as a federal district court judge. So, look, we'll have to wait to see what happens. If Judge Adelman is the judge assigned to hear this case, I wouldn't be particularly surprised if he sides with the state court judge in this instance. But then I suspect it will have to work its way up through the appellate process, as so many of these things have had to do recently.
Zack, we're approaching the summertime, and this is over the next 8 weeks or so is when we receive some of the most consequential Supreme Court decisions from the current term that is wrapping up as we speak. Zack, what could you remind us and our listeners what were some of the big cases of this term that have been heard and that have yet to be decided that we'll probably start seeing hand downs for maybe at the end of May and definitely throughout the month of June?
Yeah, well, look, I don't think we're going to see as many blockbuster cases this term as we did last year. In fact, I just had an article come out at the Federalist Society Review. You can find it on my Twitter or X feed at EV Smith, where I break down many of the big cases last term. And last term really was a monumental case. I think one of the ones this term, though, that I'm watching closely is the U.S. versus Scrimeti case, which talks about it was a challenge to Tennessee's law where they banned gender mutilation procedures against minors. There's several important criminal cases this term as well, several important environmental EPA-type cases as well. There's obviously the TikTok case that was argued back in January about whether or not the TikTok ban is constitutional or not. So there will be some very interesting cases along the First Amendment front. Also, the case out of Texas, basically where Texas passed restrictions to restrict minors from being able to access pornographic images and videos, and that was being challenged. So there will be some interesting cases that come out this term, but I'm not sure it will be quite the blockbuster term that it was last year.
Zack, one final question. I know you have to catch a plane, but I have to ask you about the death of former Supreme Court Justice David Souter. I know you weren't old enough. I don't think you were born when he was appointed to the court, but he was a major disappointment to conservatives. He had the thumbs up from Governor Sununu, who was George H.W. Bush's chief of staff, that this guy was a solid conservative. You can appoint him, Mr. President. He's with us. And he did a complete 180 during his tenure on the court. Your thoughts on that as our legal scholar, Zack Smith?
Well, Chris, first of all, I'm flattered that you think I'm that young, but I was alive, barely, but I was alive when David Souter was appointed to the court. Look, obviously, we wish Justice Souter's family well, keeping them in our thoughts and prayers with his death. But, everything I've heard, Justice Souter was a very decent man personally, but obviously, jurisprudentially, was not a conservative or an originalist by any stretch of the imagination. And I think frankly, he became somewhat of a cautionary tale for future conservative presidents. We've often heard the rallying cry through many of these recent confirmation battles, don't appoint another Souter. And that wasn't because Justice Souter was a bad person or a bad man. In fact, quite the contrary. But he certainly was not a judicial conservative. He certainly was not an originalist. And because of that, he joined or authored many problematic opinions while he was on the Supreme Court. And so I think largely in reaction to the appointment of Justice Souter and the frankly disappointment he became on the court to many conservatives, you have seen future conservative presidents trying to be much, much more careful in their vetting and nomination process. And I think we will see a continuation of that whenever the next vacancy occurs.
And we don't have an answer. We don't have time for an answer today, but I just wonder, Tim and Zach, is how in the world did he make it through the vetting process? Didn't his lower court rulings give some type of indication of how he may rule on the Supreme Court?
Well, I have a lot of thoughts on this, Chris. Too good.
You got a plane to catch now. Remember that.
I do. Well, I'll just, dangerous words for a lawyer. I'll be brief. But look, I think he had been Chief of Staff John Sununu backing him. John Sununu at the time was the former governor of New Hampshire. And so I think the backing of Sununu helped Souter get through and may have smoothed over some of the otherwise red flags that should have emerged during that process.
And that is Zack Smith. That's why we pay him the big bucks. Senior legal fellow of the Heritage Foundation. On X, he's TZ Smith, heritage.org. Safe travels, my friend, and we'll speak with you again next Wednesday.
Thanks so much, Chris. Take care.
No problem.
Bye-bye.
All right, Tim, we got a big show as always. We got to go to break. Went a little long. That was my fault. I apologize for that. And we'll basically start the show off when we come back and tell you who we're going to have on today and what we're going to discuss. You are listening to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show on 101.9, 94.1 News Talk STL.
It's the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show.
All right. God save the Queen, man.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm First Alert 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton. This evening, a spot shower or sprinkle, not out of the question, but most are going to stay dry and warm. Overnight, a low of 69 degrees, mostly sunny in the morning. A hot day Thursday, a high of 92. The record's 94 from 1944. There is a slight chance for an isolated storm in the evening, mainly east and southeast of St. Louis. Between about 5 to 9 p.m., we'll watch for that. Storms may not even pop, but if they do, it could be strong, again, mainly south and east of St. Louis. Otherwise, Friday is a First Alert weather day with our better chance for storms. Dry in the morning, but a high of 89 and scattered storms in the afternoon that could be severe, anywhere from 1 to 8 p.m. Be on guard for severe threat Friday. That's the latest from the First Alert 4 Weather Center. I'm Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
Free speech is alive and well in America right here.
It's about time somebody stood up for true American values.
What this country needs is some backbone.
Finally, a president who wants to make real change.
101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL.
Beautiful spring weather here on the horizon as we head to summertime. Perfect place to go. The Hideout. HideoutSportsBar.com is where you can find all the information you need to know about the Hideout Sports Bar. HideoutSportsBar.com. You know what? This place is fantastic. It was the brainchild and the vision of the great Rick Pogue and the fantastic Jake Kestner. They launched the Hideout several years ago now. Let's see. Man, we're approaching the 3rd year anniversary of the Hideout. This place has just been rocking and rolling ever since it launched. In fact, so popular, they've added a second location where you can pick up delicious Hideout delicacies and get cold drinks. Yes, the Hideout is at the 19th hole now of Sugar Creek Golf Course. Another fantastic sponsor. Man, we got a big, fantastic family. Hideout Sports Bar, of course, at 3367 High Ridge Boulevard. That is not far from anywhere in the St. Louis metro region. I promise you, it's 10 minutes down Gravois, otherwise known as Highway 30. 10 minutes from 270. Down Gravois, just a little bit to the Western Lands. Beautiful setting. up on a gigantic ridge overlooking the valleys of northern Jefferson County. Absolutely spectacular inside and out. 5,000 square feet indoors, huge compound, great menu. They've updated the menu recently. It's really awesome. Shareable apps, delicious pizzas that are made on premises, recipes from the hill, delicious wings, cold drinks, wonderful staff, and a huge game room in the back. Outside, 5,000 square feet outside. You got 10,000 square feet of fun in the sun. Outside, you've got the sunset stage, the patio. We're going to have to get out there for another live remote real soon. The Cattleman's Grill, the train station bar, awesome live music. I could go on and on and on, and you should go check them out. Bike night tonight, great specials throughout the weekend, live music. It's a family-friendly, easy for me to say, family-friendly place right here in our backyard. HideoutSportsBar.com, the original Hideout, 3367 High Ridge Boulevard. The new Hideout location, right at Sugar Creek Golf Course. HideoutSportsBar.com, HideoutSportsBar.com. The Hideout. We'll see you there.
Tony Colombo here for All Solutions Pest Control, the team Christine and I trust to protect our home. We've used multiple services at multiple homes over the years, and I can tell you from all that experience, All Solutions is second to none. If you have a pest problem of any kind, or more importantly, just want to prevent a problem, All Solutions is the team to call. Learn more and take advantage of their incredible $67 introductory offer right now at allsolutionspestcontrol.com.
If a pest-free home is your goal, call All Solutions Pest Control.
Getting new flooring can be exciting, or it can be a hassle. To make sure you have a great experience, use Michael's Flooring, like I did. Hi, it's Susie Moore, and Michael's Flooring has become my go-to for quality, variety, and an all-around great experience. They've been locally owned and operated for more than 30 years. Carpet, hardwood, laminate, ceramic tile, natural stone, luxury vinyl, it doesn't matter. Michael's Flooring is ready to help. 3 locations to pick from: St. Peter's, Darting Prairie, and Creve Coeur, or online at igotfloor.com. That's igotfloor.com.
News Talk STL. This hour of Jones and Arps is brought to you by Stifel. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com.
Yeah, yeah, yeah! Yeah, yeah, yeah! Come on now.
Dropping truth bombs and making you think. It's the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show.
Governor Newsom is expected to call for the scaling back on health care for undocumented immigrants. The plan would bar undocumented adults from joining Medi-Cal starting next year. That's the state's version of Medicaid. Children and teens would still be eligible. This is part of an effort to cut the state budget. The governor's office says it could save the state $5.4 billion in 3 years. This is a significant reversal from Newsom, who previously touted that nobody would be kicked off their health care plans, even undocumented people.
429 on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show. And Tim, I had Joey play that clip because part of my Chris's Corner at 445 is going to be illegal immigration related. I don't know. We haven't talked too much about it. The New Jersey mayor that was arrested at the detention center with a bunch of Democratic reps. So that's going to be Chris's Corner. Democrats still don't seem to have learned their lesson. Good for them. A lot of big national news. Trump is out of the country on the big $1 trillion business deal, but we got 2 days left before the legislature adjourns. Tim, you're there in the thick of it. Have there been any more cat fights, pushing and shoving? What's happening in the legislature?
Oh, quite a bit, Chris. This is rocking and this is rock'em sock'em time up here as Vic Porcelli and or Dan Bungie. I think it's an Italian thing. Rock'em sock'em robots up here in Jefferson City. As I mentioned all week long, there are train cars lining up in the Senate waiting to pass go. Hopefully we'll have them pass the station and not have a train wreck. We've got the pro-life proposal. This will be a revisitation of Amendment 3 that the voters will decide. The legislature will not have the final say on this. They're trying to pass a ballot proposition that will revisit Amendment 3. Many believe that voters were absolutely deceived and, dare I say, lied to in Amendment 3. I think this new proposition will be what a lot of people thought they were voting on last time around. It'll be much more transparent as to what it does. So you have the Amendment 3 revisitation that is being debated right now. Democrats are filibustering Number two, another Democrat filibuster bill has been the proposal to fix Proposition A. Again, Chris, I think most people thought they were voting to raise the minimum wage, not put a bunch of job-killing, small business crushing regulations on small businesses like News Talk STL and so many of our advertisers. I've heard many of our advertisers on our station being interviewed over the last few weeks about various things, and they all have brought up Proposition A and how devastating that will be to their small businesses if they don't fix it. They thought they had an agreement twice with Democrats up here. Democrats reneged on that, and so there may be a breaking of the filibuster on that. And finally, Chris, the Second Amendment Preservation Act, it passed several years ago. The left took it to the courts. The courts said that it needed to be fixed in some regards. So this is the fix bill. That's also being filibustered. Chris, they will have to, at this point, move the previous question, shut off the Democratic filibuster, and take a vote on these bills. That it's been a bit of a sacred cow over the last 6-7 years. It never used to be that way. It was rarely used, but it was always used at the end of session to move a couple of big priorities across the finish line. Good session so far. It could be a great session if they get these things across the finish line. Chris, I'm being told that PQ signature sheets are being circulated as we speak while this filibuster is ongoing against the Amendment 3 proposal, the revisitation proposal, and that we could have some fireworks either late tonight or tomorrow. The session ends one way or the other Friday, 6 p.m.
And explain the PQ procedure, how many signatures, how many senators you need in order to do that. I remember last year during the whole IP debate and everything, people were saying that if a PQ would have been called, there wasn't enough signatures to make that a viable option. What does it look like this session?
So the previous question motion, we call it PQ for shorthand. So anytime a bill is on the floor of the House or the Senate, the majority leader in either chamber can move the previous question. So shut off debate. In the House, they move the previous question all the time. Sometimes they don't have to do it because in the House, they don't have the filibuster. Neither party has the filibuster in the House. They have time limits on debate. So usually the debates come to an end and they vote on the bills. If the majority leader needs to move things quicker, he can move the previous question. It happens all the time. In the Senate, they rarely move the previous question. They have not moved the previous question in at least 6 or 7 years. Caleb Rowden, who used to be the Senate president and the majority leader, he's gone. He was term limited. He said he would never, ever use the previous question, and he never did. Senator Tony Luke DeMeyer, the new majority leader, has said that he will use the previous question motion on important Republican priorities. So, Chris, in order to do that, there's a lot of procedural mumbo jumbo that goes along with that. Long story short, you need at least 10 senators to sign a PQ paper to get the process started. I have heard that they have 10 signatories on both the Amendment 3 matter and on the Proposition A matter, and that they're extremely close to 10 on the Second Amendment Preservation Act. Once the PQ is called and supported by those 10 senators, then the normal rules kick in. They would need 18 out of 24 Republicans to vote yes on the bill. So I believe the biggest hurdle will be getting that first step done. I think once the question is called, these are all Republican priorities. All of these Republican senators ran on these issues, campaigned on them, promised their constituents they would do something on these. So I think once it's in the light of day that the PQ has been successfully called, I think there will easily be 18 yes votes if they can get these things to a vote. So, Chris, basically, you're voting whether you should vote on these matters. Very similar to the U.S. Senate rules.
And while you're speaking there, 507 Speaker Stump speech topic will be.
Yeah, we're going to have another special guest in Studio Schroer today, a frequent friend of the station and the show, Camelia Peterson from Americans for Prosperity, Missouri. They came out most vociferously, there's your SAT word for the day, against the stadium, the taxpayer-funded stadium package. Many people are like, well, wait a minute, Tim, didn't you tell us that the Senate filibustered that? Yeah, actually, the Senate Democrats filibustered that yesterday. The conservatives were also opposed to that. So it's probably dead for the session. But we're going to talk to Camellia because the governor has suggested he will call a special session on that issue. So we're going to ask why Americans for Prosperity and many other groups are opposed to this, why the Senate Democrats and the Senate conservatives are united on their opposition to this. And, Chris, we're going to talk about other AFP priorities that have either gotten across the finish line or are close in these final 48 hours of session.
And then at 5:24, we'll speak with Peter Murphy, Senior Advisor to the American Enterprise Institute's Invest in Education Coalition. We'll talk to him about Educational Choice for Children Act and the tax credit for private donations. And at the end of the show, I found a report that said that regional accents are disappearing in the United States. I find that very, very hard to believe. We'll discuss that. And Tim, I've got a trivia question for you. You can have the whole show to think about it. You don't look it up during the break.
Okay,
who was
I won't.
the first who was the first president who was in the White House when electricity was first installed? That is your presidential political trivia of the day. So you got all show to think about it. Don't look it up. Don't do a Google search.
Can Joey play the Jeopardy music at the end of the show?
Yeah, we'll play the Jeopardy music.
While we're thinking on that?
We will give you 30 seconds exactly as the music does. All right, on the national, international stage, and domestically we'll stay here. More excerpts are coming out from the Jake Tapper book, Tim. And
so gross.
Yeah, and it came out yesterday. We missed it yesterday, but apparently at a George Clooney fundraiser, he was raising money for the president. President Biden had no idea who he was. The most recognizable probably man in the world. The president didn't know who he was. He's doing this fundraiser for him. Here's what it says from the book. It says, George, an aide told Biden when he saw Clooney. George Clooney, the aide had to clarify after it seemed obvious Biden hadn't realized which George. Oh, yeah. Hi, George, Biden said, according to the book, set for release a week from today. And that's when George Clooney apparently got a conscience. And a week later, Tim, that's when he wrote his New York Times op-ed saying that the president should bow out. Didn't tell the rest of us what he saw, but he just did an editorial and said that he needs to drop out. These people, from the media to George Clooney to all the enablers that were around Biden in the White House, they all have guilt on their hands. I don't want to say blood, but they're all negligent.
Is this the height of hypocrisy that Jake Tapper has published a book declaring how horrid it was that Joe Biden's cognitive decline was the subject of a cover-up that Jake Tapper participated in?
Yeah.
I mean, Chris, can you think of, do they really think, they must think the American people are stupid, dumb, and blind, right? That we didn't see all the, you and I and others talked about this, and we were accused of being horrifically mean right-wing conspiracy theorists.
Tim, I was listening to the political podcast, their morning podcast, when I was driving in, and the guy that hosted had one of the reporters on there, and he was saying with a straight face, they were talking about this book and the story, and he was like, it's kind of embarrassing as journalists, but how in the world did we miss this? I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. The American people can see that the president has dementia by watching him on television. You're covering him face to face, day to day, every day, and you didn't see anything? Give me a break, Tim. You can't tell me that George Clooney and other people at that fundraiser realizing that Biden doesn't even recognize who he is. You're going to tell me they all just kept that to themselves? Nobody whispered, nobody talked. That didn't get to the media. They didn't hear any whispers. Jake Tapper and the rest of them, give me a break.
How is it that all of us hillbillies out here in flyover land figured this out years ago? Ken Williams, one of our mid-morning producer, Vic Porcelli show, Ken has a catalog, Chris. You've heard many of them. They become famous on our station. They become like our little shorthand, the whoosh sound and all that.
Yeah.
Ken has hours of Joe Biden clips where Joe Biden sounds like his brain is broken. And Chris, how about the ones that don't even have the audio? How about the visuals? How about the visuals of him shaking hands with people that aren't there, wandering off into fields in Europe where no one is.
And
I mean, it's unbelievable.
And here's one that I just heard today that there's a picture of Joe Biden in the cabinet room with all of the cabinet. I had heard, reports that he had forgot their names, didn't know who they were. And, usually when you have a name plate in front of you, it's pointing outward so people can see it. It was pointing in a way that Joe Biden could see them, only so he could remember who these people were. It was just
Chris,
really sad.
They were hiding his physical condition too. I know you've heard the stories over the last few days. In case folks missed it, apparently his physical ailments were getting so severe, and they were putting him they were basically causing him daily pain because he probably should have been in a wheelchair. They wouldn't let him have a wheelchair or a walker or a cane or anything. So they made him shuffle around in this weird old man gait because his back was so destroyed, and they wanted to hide that until after the election.
That was my Chris's Corner yesterday. So we talked about that excerpt where he was, they were saying, hey, we may have to put him in a wheelchair after the election. It's like hiding that from
you highlighted
people.
that yesterday. And so all these examples, the physical, the cognitive, the actual aspects of the visuals, the audio, the physical ailments, it was all apparent to us. The media, now that he's been out of office for 7 months, they're acting like they just discovered all of this for the first time. And when we, the royal we on the center right side of the media spectrum, dared to point and suggest things out, Chris, they said that we doctored the videos, that we edited the audio, that we were making cheap fakes, deep fakes. We were making it all up. Yeah, I wish we had time to do all those things. It's just, it's apocryphal.
Joey, what was the name that the name you coined for the representative yesterday that filed the impeachment hearings? His real name is Shri Thanadar. What did you say?
Sherry Thunder.
Sherry Thunder. We're going to talk about this later in the show, but I think we know the reason why Sherry Thunder did the impeachment hearings there. And it wasn't because he was mad at Donald Trump. It was for another reason. We'll get into that. Chris's Corner coming up. We're going to talk about the New Jersey mayor who was arrested outside a detention center. And some of these sanctuary cities, they are getting nervous. We'll have more. You're listening to Tim Jones and Chris Arps show on 1019 94.1 News Talk STL.
Some like fat, some like tall, some like short, skinny legs and all.
It's the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show.
I liked beer. I still like beer.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm First Alert 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton. This evening, a spot shower or sprinkle, not out of the question, but most are going to stay dry and warm. Overnight, a low of 69 degrees, mostly sunny in the morning. A hot day Thursday, a high of 92. The record's 94 from 1944. There is a slight chance for an isolated storm in the evening, mainly east and southeast of St. Louis. Between about 5 to 9 p.m., we'll watch for that. Storms may not even pop, but if they do, it could be strong. Again, mainly south and east of St. Louis. Otherwise, Friday is a First Alert weather day with our better chance for storms. Dry in the morning, but a high of 89 and scattered storms in the afternoon that could be severe, anywhere from 1 to 8 p.m. Be on guard for severe threat Friday. That's the latest from the First Alert 4 Weather Center. I'm Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
All the information I need on the drive to work.
Mike Ferguson in the morning. We keep it on throughout the day, whether it's local, national, or something big that's happening overseas.
News, analysis, and opinion. St. Louis is #1 for conservative talk. News Talk STL.
Report cards are a good way to show how well your kids are doing in class and where they might need improvement. We at the Show Me Institute believe schools should get grades too, so parents can see how their child's school compares to others. That's why we came up with the Missouri School Rankings Project. Click on the website moschoolrankings.org and it's all there. Rankings and letter grades for all the schools in Missouri. The rankings are based on categories such as student performance in English language arts and math, ACT scores, and graduation rates. Then we take the rankings and come up with a grade point average, just like your child has. Each school and district has a grade, and the website is easy to use. And now we've added spending data for every district, so parents, taxpayers, and policymakers can see where the money is going. Don't you want to know how your child's school stacks up? Learn more at showmeinstitute.org. The Show Me Minute has been brought to you by Show Me Institute and Show Me Opportunity.
Hey, DIY warriors, ready to transform your outdoor space? Start with Lee May Concrete Block, St. Louis's trusted family-owned manufacturer since 1947. Whether you're building a retaining wall, creating a backyard fireplace, or pouring concrete, Lee May's got you covered. From compact blocks to large cast concrete, they provide materials and professional guidance to bring your vision to life. Military and first responders get special discounts. Visit Lee May Block Showroom or LeeMayBlock.com. Lee May Block, building your dream one block at a time.
Now you can fly anywhere in the world and pay discount prices on your airline tickets. Book a flight today to London, Paris, Madrid, or anywhere else you want to go and pay a lot less guaranteed. Call the International Travel Department right now at Low Cost Airlines.
800-515-2397. 800-515-2397. That's 800-515-2397.
Mike Ferguson in the morning.
A new report of censorship on campus is out, and unfortunately, a St. Louis area university is on the list. Find out which one Thursday at 8:35.
Morning starting at 5:30.
On News Talk STL. This hour of Jones and Arps is brought to you by Stifel. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com.
My baby like
Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
An immigration judge agreed that he was MS-13.
For bail purposes.
Hold on.
We're not going to misrepresent.
Hold on.
A judge.
I object.
The floor. What do you want to say?
I object because she is misstating the record and the facts. That is not accurate, and therefore I object to that being introduced. There's no.
Mr.
Sir, can
Chairman?
I explain? You let her go on.
You go ahead.
There is no final court order establishing that he's a member. Maybe he is. So you should put all that evidence before a judge, and if he is MS-13, he should be deported.
448 on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show. That evidence has been put forward. Just more evidence that Democrats are more worried about illegal immigrants than Americans. Tim, you've heard a popcorn theme with the music all show, and that's brought to us on behalf of Ray Ray's Kettle Corn. Today's Joey told me they're called thumbnails. I think you and I call them memes. You and I are in a field of corn with a big movie-sized buckets of popcorn between us. Makes me want to get a soda and a popcorn and go to the movies.
I was wondering if this is like some kind of Stephen King Children of the Corn horror scene, because you and I are wearing like, it's a very interesting. Joey's combined a lot of themes here. We got the cornfield behind us; it's on fire.
Children, yeah, it's on fire.
We're smiling, wearing fireman gear. We're wearing breakout gear, and we're holding big buckets of popcorn. It's a pretty bizarre scene, but then Joey's a pretty bizarre guy.
Joey,
so, there we go.
Joey, I'm assuming that the fire in the background is heating the corn, creating popcorn, and Tim and I are basically harvesting that corn. That's why we have the big buckets. Is that a pretty good?
It's probably a controlled fire as well. That's why you're not too concerned.
Exactly. Because if you look at it, we're awfully close to it. It's not that far behind
we
us.
don't seem bothered.
Exactly.
No.
Good
Thank
thing.
you, Ray Ray's Kettle Corn.
Ray Ray's Kettle Corn. Good thing that the smoke seems to be blowing away from us, Tim, not towards us. So I think we're good. Even though that smoke looks like it could be damaging the environment. Very dark,
It could
very
be
dark smoke.
Causing all kinds of holes in the ozone.
I think
Chris,
so,
yes.
yeah. Just so we can have popcorn. But by the time the ozone layer is depleted, we'll be long gone and dead and worm food. All right.
Yeah, we don't
off
have to
the
worry
topic, let's go ahead and do a little Carner.
Chris.
And if you don't know, now you know.
And now, Chris's Corner.
You know, some Democrats know that this sympathy for illegal immigrants does not bode well for Democrats in their election chances. One of those people is freshman Senator Ruben Gallego. He is rolling out an immigration plan, Tim. It has 5 pillars. 1, border security, asylum reform, expanding legal pathways for workers, allowing a path to citizenship for dreamers and undocumented spouses, and implementing a proactive, whatever that means, regional strategy to stem illegal immigrants. As we know, this plan is dead on arrival, but I think he's trying to stake out a moderate tone, not this wild-eyed, let everybody in, and they have due process rights, just like any other American. I talked about the New Jersey mayor. His name is Ras Baraka. He was arrested and released hours later after protesting at a new federal immigration center he claims lacks permits. 3 Democratic lawmakers from New Jersey, Representatives Ani Watson Coleman, LaMonica McIver, and Rob Menendez. He, of course, is the son of the infamous former Senator Rob Menendez, who's going to be heading to the Gray Bar Hotel soon, faced off against DHS guards on May 9th outside the Delaney Hall Detention Center shortly after the officers moved to arrest Newark Mayor Ras Baraka. Baraka was allegedly trying to get inside the facility, but the mayor said later he was arrested after leaving. In Worcester, Massachusetts, local police have pinned down, according to this report, a 16-year-old girl as ICE agents detained her mother. Both were arrested, sparking chaos as neighbors intervene. And this is in Worcester, Massachusetts, pretty much what you'd expect. And you remember the president with his self-deportation plan, executive order program stating that migrants can, quote, simply show up at an airport, receive a free flight out, and they don't have to worry about severe consequences. And we said that this makes a lot of sense. It's a lot cheaper than flying these people home on military jets. I always find it very curious. You know, the Democrats want to spend money like it's going out of control. But if anything has to do with the border or trying to keep us safe or something conservative, that's when they become conservative when it comes to money. New NBC News has a new report saying that the Trump administration has spent at least $21 million transporting migrants to Guantanamo Bay on military aircrafts between January and April. The average flight cost total over $26,000. So you can see it's much cheaper to give them a flight on American Airlines and send them home than using these military jets at $26,000. They also go on to say that they criticized the president, said that a fraction of the 30,000 people President Trump said were to be sent to Guantanamo have been sent. Only 500 migrants since he announced this effort in January. It's never held more than 200 at any one time. Instead, many of the migrants have been flown elsewhere. So they're complaining about this money being spent, a waste of money and all that. It amazes me when they become conservative for things that keep us safe and that I would just say, and most of us would say, are just common sense. You know, I said earlier, some of these sanctuary cities are getting very, very nervous about their policies. To show you this, some U.S. cities are canceling cultural events over fears of ICE raids and deportation. CNN has this story. It says a few migrants remain in the Darien Gap, but an environmental crisis has been left behind. That is in Matias Delacroix in Vela Caleta, Panama. And I think that I mixed those stories together. I apologize for that, but you get the gist of it. If you are an illegal immigrant and you are going to a Cinco de Mayo festival or would have gone to a Cinco de Mayo festival in one of these sanctuary cities, it could have been a very, very good chance that someone would have stopped and talked to you in my best German voice. Where are your papers? And that is Chris's Corner. Tell me out of your papers. Amazing. Is that pretty good, or is that more Yugoslavian or kind of East German?
Yeah,
or
kind of Eastern Bloc.
Yeah,
Eastern Bloc.
You got to roll the tongues. I know is very, very important.
Indeed. All
right,
Chris,
remind
what
us.
A difference.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say what a difference an administration makes, huh? You now have the federal government discouraging the breaking of the law and entering the country illegally in many different ways, as you just described.
Wow, and I thought our country was founded on the rule of law. That's what we have been taught from our earliest civic classes in high school. Tim, who is the special guest in the nest there at Studio Schroer?
Well, she's sitting right across from me. Camelia Peterson is with Americans for Prosperity Missouri. She's a frequent flyer here at News Talk STL. I'll swing the camera around in a second when we head to the next segment and do the speaker's stump speech. But Camelia's excited to join us this afternoon and talk to us about AFP Missouri priorities, things that have gotten across the finish line, things that could get across the finish line. And since I've been stuck in here in the crow's nest for the last hour or so, she may have some updates on what's going on the Senate floor.
And I don't think we can congratulate Camelia Peterson enough on the great event that we partnered up with her, bringing the great Kane in to talk about tax cuts and zero estate income taxes. Great event. Now I'm so hyped up and excited. I'm expecting we'll probably have Hulk Hogan come in and do an event for AFP and News Talk STL. Can't wait to talk to her about that and more. You are listening to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show on 101.9, 94.1 News Talk STL.
You're listening to Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
This Memorial Day weekend, bring your crew to Busch Stadium to see the Cardinals take on the D-backs. May 23rd to the 25th, catch great promotions all weekend long, including a Mason Win bobblehead and a Kid City Connect jersey giveaway. Kick off your summer with ballpark hot dogs, ice-cold beers, and entertainment for the whole family. Tickets are available at Cardinals.com. This is how summer is meant to be. See you at the ballpark.
This is Alec Burleson, St. Louis Cardinals, for the Lou.
Hey parents, looking for something fun and unforgettable to do with the kids? Bring the whole family to a Cardinals game at Busch Stadium. From kid-friendly activities and giveaways to awesome promotions like Kids Run the Bases. Your little ones will have a blast, and so will you. Check out Family Sundays, presented by Smithfield, where select tickets include a free jumbo hot dog and soda. There's nothing like sharing the magic of Cardinals baseball together. Make your memories this summer at Busch Stadium. Tickets are available at Cardinals.com.
Is your portfolio prepared for the biggest risks facing investors today? Hi, it's Tim Jones. High inflation and a rapidly changing economy may impact your investments. If you haven't made appropriate changes, your portfolio may not be positioned to address some of the biggest risks in today's economy. That means it's time to request your free portfolio review from the ClearPath Wealth Management Group at Stifel. You can hear their latest views on the markets and investing during On the Money, hosted by Stifel financial advisors Bob Stockdale and Eric Robert, every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. on News Talk STL 101.9. They can help you get organized, guide you through critical retirement decisions, and create a portfolio designed around your needs. To schedule your free portfolio review, go to clearpathinvesting.com. That's clearpathinvesting.com, or call 636-695-2650. That's clearpathinvesting.com, 636-695-2650. Stifel Nicholas & Company Incorporated, member SIPC and NYSE.
KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Belfast, KNBS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 101.9, 94.1, and always streaming at newstalkstl.com.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters in Washington. Boeing has a lot of planes to manufacture.
The American aerospace manufacturer confirmed a $96 billion order from Qatar 1 day after announcing an order from a company in Saudi Arabia. The Qatar deal is the biggest order of 787s and wide-body jets in Boeing's history. Trump announced the order during his visit to the Middle East.
And congratulations to Boeing. Get those planes out there.
Boeing had already been in the news for its planes in the Middle East, but for different reasons. Donald Trump said he'd accept a luxury Boeing 747 jumbo jet as a gift from the ruling family of Qatar. It set off intense criticism from Democrats, including Vice Chair of the Democratic Caucus, Ted Lieu.
Donald Trump should reject this gift.
I'm Haya Panjwani.
Ford Motor Company announces a recall.
Ford is recalling close to 274,000 expeditions and navigators because the brakes may stop working. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration says in documents that the front brake lines in some expeditions and navigators made from 2022 to 2024 may come in contact with the engine air cleaner outlet pipe because of an installation defect. That can cause brake fluid to leak and a loss of brake function. Ford is not aware of any accidents or injuries related to the recall. Federal safety officials say affected vehicles may require drivers to apply more pressure to the brake. I'm Donna Warder.
Republicans and Democrats alike are questioning the deep staffing cuts, research funding freezes, and drastic policy changes Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is made at the helm of the nation's health department. Kennedy appeared at a House Appropriations hearing Wednesday. On Wall Street, the Dow down by 89 points. More on these stories at townhall.com.
If you're living with pain, see how Relief Factor can help.
I'm an artist and I'm in my studio. I listen to the radio all day and I'm hearing ads about Relief Factor. And I've got pain in my neck and it's getting worse. And I'm thinking, well, I'm going to go ahead and order this. 2 weeks later, I've got much better range of motion. If you're experiencing pain at a certain point in life, I would get Relief Factor.
Fight pain naturally with Relief Factor. Go to relieffactor.com and get your 3-week quick start today. Only $19.95.
At Straight Talk, we are all about no-brainers. Calling grandma for her recipe, no-brainer. Streaming one more episode at 2 a.m., big no-brainer. Getting real unlimited data where you buy bananas, the ultimate no-brainer. Switch now and get a free Samsung Galaxy A16 5G or Moto G Power 5G 2024 with select plans. Straight Talk, real unlimited data. Available at Walmart and straighttalk.com. Offer valid through 5/19/25. Taxes and fees apply. Requires in-source single line activation on qualifying plan. For network management practices, visit straighttalk.com/terms. Copyright 2020.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm First Alert 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton. This evening, a spot shower or sprinkle, not out of the question, but most are going to stay dry and warm. Overnight, a low of 69 degrees, mostly sunny in the morning. A hot day Thursday, a high of 92. The record's 94 from 1944. There is a slight chance for an isolated storm in the evening, mainly east and southeast of St. Louis. Between about 5 to 9 p.m., we'll watch for that. Storms may not even pop, but if they do, it could be strong, again, mainly south and east of St. Louis. Otherwise, Friday is a First Alert weather day with our better chance for storms. Dry in the morning, but a high of 89 and scattered storms in the afternoon that could be severe, anywhere from 1 to 8 p.m. Be on guard for severe threat Friday. That's the latest from the First Alert 4 Weather Center. I'm Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
This hour of News Talk STL is brought to you by Stifel, serving investors for over 130 years. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com.
Another RX Watch, brought to you by Onder Law.
Welcome back to RX Watch. This alert is disturbing.
Right. A while back, we learned that companies like Johnson & Johnson use a mineral called talc in baby powder and other products.
And studies show that talc, when used for feminine hygiene, can cause ovarian cancer.
Now listen to this. RX Watch has learned that the talc they use is being mined in China.
Right, and talc mined in China contains heavy metal contaminants like chromium and magnesium, which are known to cause cancer. But China doesn't care.
So China gets the jobs and we get contaminated talc in our baby powder.
And ovarian cancer.
Right. With their specialized tests, the medical team at Onder Law can help you know if your ovarian cancer was caused by talc.
Onder Law has helped women for years with free and confidential consultation. You need to call Onder Law's pharma attorneys at 1-800-RX-WATCH.
Call Onder Law at 1-800-RX-WATCH.
That's 1-800-RX-WATCH, or go to rxwatch.com.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertisements.
Conservative talk for St. Louis.
It's your patriotic right and duty. The government needs to step up and do its job.
This is News Talk STL.
It's well-balanced conversation.
News, analysis, opinion. Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
The more you remove voting from Election Day, the more opportunity you're offering for people to commit fraud.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
I think the Democrats are so short-sighted in this tactic they have now to just cheat at any cost to win elections.
You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier. You said you were, but
Now you got to be honest. I'm going to be honest with you.
What are we doing wrong here?
As a former leader in the House, I think you can put your finger on it. It's called leadership. We don't have it.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
We intend to do more, a lot more, with less. The budget I'm presenting today supports these goals and reflects.
The witness will suspend. The committee will come to order. Capitol Police are asked to remove the individuals from the hearing room. Members of the audience are reminded disruptions will not be tolerated.
506 on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show. And Tim, I don't know about you, but whenever somebody disrupts the hearing or becomes belligerent or anything and just yells and makes noise, that really makes me want to join their bandwagon and support them. What about you?
Indeed. Oh, yeah. Sign me up. That happened several times this year in several committees, most notably in front of my state reps committee, Holly Jones, who is my state rep, my sister from another mother. They had the HJR 73. They had the Amendment 3 hearings in front of her committee. And she said that was a circus to beat the band. And she had to do it twice. Long story behind that. But very similar situation. And yeah, Chris, all people end up doing is making a mockery of themselves and the situation. And you fail to get your point across. Like you lose all credibility when you do stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. Like when you spray paint masterpiece works of art with oil and paint and everything. Give me a break. All right, you've got someone there in Studio Shore with you. Why don't you do the intro?
Yeah, I will. And I'll swing the camera around here in a second so you can see her. You've been staring at me for the last hour. Enough of me. We've got Camelia Peterson in studio here. She's with the State Government Affairs team of Americans for Prosperity, Missouri. Camelia, of course, a frequent voice here on our station. She helped bring Glenn Jacobs in for our great event we had a few weeks ago. And she is closely monitoring the final, it looks like 48 or so hours of session. And Joey, if you're ready, we'll make her the subject of today's Speaker's Stump Speech.
Listen to me, listen to me.
I'm very consistent. I'm a very stable genius.
It's time for the Speaker's Stump Speech, sponsored by Hanson's Tree Service at hansonstree.com.
Thanks for joining us this afternoon. You're on candid camera here and you're on microphone. Yeah.
I'm great. Thank you.
Okay.
It's good to be here.
Isn't it weird? It's kind of weird doing this, isn't it?
It's the first time I've ever been up in this space. It's very cool.
Yeah. Welcome to Studio Shore. And you got Chris Arps back in studio along with producer Joey V. And for the listeners, they can't tell the difference, but Camelia and I are here in Jefferson City. Chris and Joey are back in the studio. And you with AFP in Missouri, you guys have had it's kind of nice to have had to say you've had a busy session, right?
Yes, right. That means we're getting lots of things done.
Yeah, and the right things done.
That's right. That's right. So I certainly hope that the things that we work on are what people consider the right things. They're certainly the conservative things. But yeah, lots of good things done so far. It's been nice to have a functioning Senate, especially, and after the last few years. So I know that there are things that you guys have talked about already as far as getting the capital gains elimination across the finish line, sent to the governor's desk, the homeschool sports participation that Ben Brown led the charge on. So those are just a few of the things, and not to mention
huge victory for folks who homeschool their children, right? Because we deal with this quasi state governmental agency that we call MISHA. It's got a big long acronym. And I think Ben Brown's bill that got across the finish line this year was another one of those that's been just jammed in the pipeline for years, right?
It has. I mean, they've been working on this for a long time. And here's the thing that probably a lot of people don't realize is that in that bill, kind of when it went through the committee process, there were a couple of things added in there that made it even better. So there are additional homeschool protections in there for like how you are supposed to report if you're homeschooling or not or whatever. So that was made a lot better than it was before. I don't even think I knew this and I'm a homeschooler.
Right, you're a homeschool mom.
I don't think I ever checked. So so I ignored it apparently. But also there was an issue that we'd had coming out of SB 727 last year, where the previous treasurer had a rule for the Most Scholars program that required background checks for anybody in a child's household over the age of 18. That's crazy.
Mhm.
So we had been working on that with the treasurer's office, trying to get that fixed. But at the same time, like, every single legislator who worked on 727 last year that you talked to, they thought they had been taken care of. And so it slipped through the cracks somehow, but that got added on to that bill as well. So that bans background checks in your own home. And so some really great things that happen. And not to mention, like, when you talk about education freedom things, we can't not mention the 50 million that's going to go into the Most Scholars program.
Huge.
I'm really excited about that. I think mostly because, we struggled so much to get just a minimal amount of school choice in Missouri. And I really do think that this is Governor Kehoe's way of breaking the mold and kind of kicking the door open to a completely different way of doing this. So I think that there are exciting days ahead. I'm so glad that we've had his leadership on this issue. It makes all the difference.
Excellent.
Camelia, those of us, or those who don't follow politics and the news as closely as we do, I know they are hearing about this Royals Chief Stadium issue. Tell them exactly what has happened in that and where it's going. Where do you predict it will go?
Well, that's the multi-million-dollar question, isn't it?
Lots of millions.
Right. So this was a surprise to most of us yesterday morning. And so House caucus met with the governor at 8:30. This was on the table, so it was added as an amendment. It had never been heard in committee, and so never been vetted before. Everybody was seeing it for the first time. And so there was a lot of debate on the House floor about what this would look like, because nobody seemed to know. And then it passed in the House by a much larger margin than I would have anticipated. And it went over to the Senate very quickly, which is also what a lot of us did not anticipate. So the Senate filibustered on it until about 9:30 at night. We'll see what happens from here. But one of the problems is—
And Camelia, despite the fact that they love to spend lots of money, usually all the time, it was Senate Democrats.
I know.
This was a bridge. This was a bridge too far for them, wasn't it?
That's right. That's right. It was mostly Democrats and the Senate budget chair who were filibustering this. So it was a little stroke of irony there. But yeah, I mean, it just is. The thing that really stuck out to me when they were debating this on both the House and Senate floor was when you asked them, how much is this going to cost us? The answer was, we don't know. There's no fiscal note on this because they don't know how to guess what the cost is going to be to build a stadium. Like, they can guess, but those things always change. But we're talking about something that would go on for a long time. And I've talked to some representatives and different people today to kind of get their take on it. And there's differing opinions on, maybe it's not as bad as it could be, and it's not necessarily a repeat of other things. But the bottom line is that taxpayers already rejected this last year as far as subsidizing a new stadium. And AFP Missouri, actually earlier in April, we were doing some polling on some of our other issues, and we included kind of a really wide range of questions in there. But one of the questions that we included was whether or not they opposed taxpayers paying for a new stadium for the Royals and the Chiefs. And it was 73% in opposition to it. And, they always ask you, like, how do you oppose it strongly, or just, kind of, or what? And it was over half strongly were opposed to it. And so, like, the undecideds in there were very narrow, like 8%. So that is the overwhelming majority of Missourians who are opposed to this, taxpayers funding this. And I really do think that, especially legislators who are looking at elections coming up in 26 should probably keep that in the back of their minds.
Camelia, I just received an update from our little insider's publication, the Missouri Scout. And so this is the first you'll be hearing of this. It's the first I just saw it. And Chris and I would love to get your reaction here as we sit here at 5:15 p.m. in the last 48 hours of session. Missouri Scout, which is written by David Drebus, a freelance writer, says that the Senate Republicans have deployed the previous question and have cut off debate on HJR 73, the Amendment 3 repeal and replace, to bring to a vote. Camelia, I'm expecting, as I'm sure you are, that now that that PQ has been successfully deployed, the Republicans will vote to send that back to the voters. What's your reaction to this at this point in time? About the PQ in general,
Sure.
and then about this issue?
Sure. So I think that it's about time. I've talked to a lot of different people on this about this issue because they've not used the PQ at all. And for those who are not familiar with that, it ends the debate and it lets you take a vote so that you don't have to continue the filibuster indefinitely. And the thing is that, they haven't used it at all the last few years, but, I talked to some senators, they're like, it was never designed to be that way. Yes, like the filibuster slows the process down. It gives the minority party a chance to push back and to slow those things down. But you should use the PQ. Otherwise, you are letting the minority party dictate your agenda for the entire year. It literally affects everything that you do in the entire strategy. So do I think that they should use it maybe as much as the House? Probably not. I mean, but do I think that they should use it 2 or 3 times on the big priorities? Absolutely. And so there was question about what was going to be done with that. And what I was hearing was that, they were probably going to use it on the Amendment 3 issue and on the Prop A issue. And I'm glad to see that they're doing it.
Yeah. Otherwise, you have the tyranny of the minority,
Yes.
right?
Yes. 100%.
Camelia, what do you
Chris?
say to people, and this is not my view, but what do you say to people who say if the PQ is used or maybe used too often, that the minority party will just gum up every single thing that the majority tries to do? Every single bill will be filibustered, and then you'll have absolutely nothing done. That's the argument that some give.
Sure. Well, and I think that this is partly that case has been made because that expectation has been set over the last few years. So I do think that if your baseline of how you operate is with the understanding and everybody understands that this is something you use sparingly and minimally, and you're going to use it on your most important issues, I don't think so. I mean, part of the reason for the filibuster and part of the reason for minimal usage of the PQ is so that you have those conversations and so that you do some negotiating on those kinds of things and you take into consideration all of the viewpoints. But I think if that is the normal baseline, I don't think you'll see that be the outcome.
Mm-hmm. Speaking with Camelia Peterson of Americans for Prosperity, Missouri. Camelia, one of AFP's top priorities did not get across the finish line. Well, probably is not going to get across the finish line this year, but it made it further than before. The REINS Act, which is an acronym, and REINS, right?
Yes.
I'm not going to ask you to list it all out.
I have to look it up every time I have to think about what it was.
The REINS Act, it's an acronym. What does it do? More importantly, versus what the acronym stands for, because it's a long title. What will it do if and when it passes, hopefully next year?
Yes. So it's good checks and balances in government. And basically what it does is when the legislature passes a law, they hand it off to the appropriate agency to implement. And the agency is tasked with promulgating some rules, right? That's the phrase you'll hear. And if the agency makes rules that cost businesses, taxpayers, the people impacted by this law, if it costs them a significant amount, then that would put it back to the legislature for approval on that. And the idea is that it just keeps agencies in check so that they don't take too much latitude with the task that they've been given. It also requires the legislature to be thoughtful about the legislation they pass and what's required by that. And hopefully helps agencies be more thoughtful before they create these rules, that they're doing so responsibly in a way that is respectful of taxpayers and their hard-earned money. So I will say it passed out of committee in both the Senate and the House. So we're very happy with that. 33 co-sponsors, which is more than any other piece of legislation in the over 1,700 bills in the House. So we took, I think in the time that we had, and we honestly started on it late, like we took an issue that's very nerdy, wonky, niche, right? Like there was like, what's that? Like legislators didn't even know what that was. And we made it so that way more people know what this is, and we're well positioned for next year. We do have something that's similar that is probably going to get across the finish line. That's the hope. It's just got one more hurdle in the House. But Senator Nick Schroer has a bill that basically, if everybody remembers the Chevron deference case with the Supreme Court that got overturned. So states have been taking on similar measures. And the legislation basically tells the courts that, look, you can't defer to agencies to make decisions about laws. Like you have to do your job. And if it's unclear to you, send it back to the legislature to clarify it.
And finally, Camelia, I want to ask you about Missouri, poised to become the first U.S. state to eliminate capital gain taxes on individual income. We usually don't lead on tax policy too much. Your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so great. The day that passed, it was such a busy day because everything's been busy, especially the last 2 weeks, that I hadn't even gotten to post about it when somebody from South Dakota was texting me a screenshot that they had seen online about it. And they said, "Is this true?" And I was like, yes, it is. So people are talking about it all across the country. It's very exciting. It's a great next step in the direction that we're going with tax reform in the state. And hopefully we'll do even bigger things next year.
Indeed. Camila, before we let you go, as soon as the session is over in a couple days, AFP Missouri will now go forth in missionary style and continue speaking with folks all over the state of Missouri, like you all are known to do. You hold a lot of events and things. Where can folks follow you personally, and where can they find out what AFP Missouri is going to be working on after session?
Okay, so the easiest way to find out what all events we have coming up is to go to afpmissouri.com, and we have everything listed there along with different pages where you can take action on different things. And as far as online, just look for AFP Missouri on all the social media platforms, and you can find me at Rare Camellia if you can spell that. It's not an easy one, I know, but if you find AFP Missouri, you'll also find me because that's me behind the keyboard.
Indeed. Camellia Pearson with Americans for Prosperity, Missouri. Chris, I think that was a great conversation. We
Great
just had.
conversation.
We had breaking news right in the middle of it.
Exactly.
So, indeed.
Camellia, thank you for your time as always, and thank you for all the work you're doing for the taxpayers of Missouri.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right.
All
Chris,
right.
there we go.
All right, Tim. We're going to have Peter Murphy coming up. He's a senior advisor to the American Enterprise Institute's Invest in Education Coalition. We're going to ask him about Educational Choice for Children's Act and just school choice in general and what's happening with it. You're listening to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show on 1019 94.1 News Talk STL, number one for live and local conservative talk.
Guess what picture you see when you're hugging with your baby last row in the balcony?
You're listening to Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
A cast out of Hollywood, and the popcorn from the candy stand makes it all seem twice as good.
From the Michael's Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm First Alert 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton. This evening, a spot shower or sprinkle, not out of the question, but most are going to stay dry and warm. Overnight, a low of 69 degrees, mostly sunny in the morning. A hot day Thursday, a high of 92. The record's 94 from 1944. There is a slight chance for an isolated storm in the evening, mainly east and southeast of St. Louis. Between about 5 to 9 p.m., we'll watch for that. Storms may not even pop, but if they do, it could be strong. Again, mainly south and east of St. Louis. Otherwise, Friday is a First Alert weather day with our better chance for storms. Dry in the morning, but a high of 89 and scattered storms in the afternoon that could be severe, anywhere from 1 to 8 p.m. Be on guard for severe threat Friday. That's the latest from the First Alert 4 Weather Center. I'm Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
Tony Colombo here for Gutter Pros, your all-in-one gutter service team that brings years of experience and quality that's affordable right to your doorstep. We discovered Gutter Pros a few years ago when we bought our home and inherited a gutter issue that was on the road to becoming a potentially big problem, but thanks to Gutter Pros was stopped before causing any major damage. They've also repaired the siding on our home because along with gutter repair, gutter installation, and leaf protection, the Gutter Pros are also the best for siding repair and installation. Learn about all the ways Gutter Pros can help your home at gutterpros.com.
I'm Dr. TJ, owner of the Institute of Natural Health, co-owner of Optimal Nutraceuticals, and the host of Wellness One. Wellness One is designed to cut through the nonsense and provide you common sense science-based information regarding health and wellness. On the show, we discuss topics like thyroid health, gut health, hormone optimization, and many others. Our show airs Saturdays at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. and Sundays at 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. right here on Newstalk STL. And you can visit us at inhstl.com. That's inhstl.com.
Hey, it's Mike Ferguson from the Morning Show here for Common Sense Rental. That is sense with a C, your all-new steel dealer in Fenton. We have got deals you just cannot miss. On April 25th, get 15% off all Echo items and get 15% off Red Max handheld products through April 6th. For Memorial Day weekend, get a 3-day rental for the price of just 1 day. By the way, we are now a Grasshopper mower dealer as well. Common Sense Rental, family-owned since 2009. We're on Gravoy Road in Fenton or online at commonsenserental.com.
Experience the true flavors of Mexico at Dos Primos, O'Fallon's premier Mexican restaurant. From sizzling fajitas to homemade caldo de pollo, every dish is crafted with the freshest ingredients and traditional recipes, all made fresh daily in our kitchen. Cool down with our famous margaritas or your favorite cerveza, while our friendly staff makes you feel like family. Dine in or carry out. Visit DosPrimosMexicanRestaurant.com or find us on North Main in O'Fallon.
This hour of Jones and Arps is brought to you by Stifel. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com.
Butter your popcorn. Come on, children. Butter your popcorn. Come on, children. Woo! Butter your popcorn.
It's the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show.
I said, butter your popcorn now. Come on, children.
Congressman Owens, you're a member of the House Committee on Education and Workforce, co-sponsor of the Educational Choice for Children Act.
It's a way to give choice to every child and does not take not 1 red cent of resources from the local area. It's saying that we as individuals, as corporations, we can invest in our own children into a scholarship granting organization. And no matter what state that is in, parents can pull from that to give their kids charter, private, parochial, homeschool, whatever they may want to do. And here's the beauty of it. The Department of Education has no say on it, and neither does the state government.
527 on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show, and Utah Congressman Burgess Owens, who's been a guest on our show, talking about the need for educational school choice, especially among African-American and poor families. Tim, we've got on the line with us Peter Murphy. He's senior advisor to the American Enterprise Institute's Invest in Education Coalition. Peter, welcome to the show.
Chris, it's great to be on. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you so much. So tell us, what is the Educational Choice for Children's Act?
It is legislation in Congress that would generate privately funded scholarships for use in K-12 education, elementary and secondary school. And it really is designed and built upon laws that exist in 21 states right now that give a similar tax incentive, a tax credit in this case, to drive private donations to scholarship granting organizations. And what that does, frankly, is as these organizations have more money to give out, more children can get more scholarships to empower their families to pick the schools that's best meets their needs, that it gives them expand school choice nationwide to children in every state.
And Peter, so this is federal legislation that, if passed by Congress and signed by the president, would apply to all 50 states?
That's correct. That's right. So, and it's what it is, Tim. It's a simple change in the Internal Revenue Code. It's a change in the federal tax code that would drive more donations. It would increase the incentive to donate to this particular nonprofit entity that awards scholarships. So you have 21 states that do this now. It's taking a model that's worked very effectively at the state level and doing it in a way that does not invite government mandates, government infringement, potential encroachment on religious liberties and school autonomy. It really just expands education freedom for families in every state across the country, whether you have school choice already or whether you don't.
Yeah, we're speaking with Peter Murphy, senior advisor to the American Enterprise Institute's Invest in Education Coalition. Thing that I love about this, Peter, is it is funded by private donations, not federal spending. It's a tax credit. Right. So how much do I get? 50%, 60%? How much of a tax credit do I get on my donation?
100%.
Oh, wow.
It is 100%. So in other words, what happens is you make a donation to a scholarship granting organization, and hundreds of these exist already across the country, and more will spring up if this bill passes. You make a donation, that money and everyone else who makes a donation gets awarded to children for their parents to choose the schools that they want for them. And you, in turn, when you file your taxes, you would deduct from what you owe the feds the amount that you gave. Now, there's limits as to how much you can give and how much you can get, but basically, it's for you personally as the taxpayer, it's a wash financially. You're not profiting off of it. You're not gaining anything. You're not getting an EV. You're not getting a accelerated depreciation for your business. You're simply getting in the credit what you already gave as a donation. So, because the purpose is to use the donors as the way to fund the scholarships. The beneficiaries of the children, the donors are simply the mechanism to do that in lieu of a government bureaucracy spending it on vouchers or education savings accounts.
Mm-hmm. So, Peter, what is the current status? We all know. Look, we're all watching this this massive, David versus Goliath battle in Washington, D.C. on the reconciliation bill, which seems to have some very common sense provisions like renewing tax cuts that are already in place and that have been effective, unleashing American energy, stopping illegal immigration, an 80% plus issue. And they're having to move heaven and earth to just get that done with a simple majority. What would it take for this bill to get all the way through Congress? And what do you think its prospects are?
I think its prospects are very good for several reasons. You start with the policy makes a lot of sense and it's worked. Secondly, it's very popular. There's a lot of constituents who want this, and it's very popular in every poll I've seen going back years. It's remarkably consistent in terms of not only just overall popularity, but if you dig down and look at specific, political party label or ethnicity, race, it's consistently popular across the board. It's nonpartisan in its popularity, and it doesn't matter whether you're white or black or in between or Asian. It's all it's been consistently supported because it's about expanding freedom and choice and accessing a better education, a more suitable education, the same as families with money can do. Rich families already have choice. They have lots of things that the rest of us don't have. This is really giving that opportunity to all children across the country, or at least starts to, right? It expands on what's there and gives more children access.
Peter, you answered. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I was going to say, so where it is, you asked the question though, so as you know, there's several committees in Congress that are simultaneously within their committee jurisdictions. They are crafting legislation, all of which together makes up this, what the president calls the big, beautiful bill, right? Mm-hmm. And by the way, every new administration that has both houses of the same party, they do this. 4 years ago, the Biden administration did this with Congress. Barack Obama did this in his first year. So this is not an unusual exercise in legislating, but they're putting this package together one committee at a time. And so the Ways and Means Committee, which has jurisdiction over the Educational Choice for Children Act, because it is a tax bill. It's not technically an education bill. No federal education laws are being changed here. That is in a package of with other tax provisions, and they passed it in the wee hours of the morning. They literally pulled an all-nighter like, we did when we were studying for final exams in college. They passed this early in the morning, and now that and everything else they did goes to the full House, the floor of the House, probably next week.
Peter, you answered my question about the popularity among parents of this program. So I'm going to switch to ask you about one of the criticisms that I've read about. Some could say that this is a tax shelter for the wealthy if you give a 100% federal tax credit. Is there a limit on how much you can give? Can you give $10 million, $5 million to this fund and get a 100% tax credit?
So the bill proposes right now that you can give no more than 10% of your adjusted gross income. And so the point is, you want to get donors of every income level to contribute, because the more they contribute, the more children benefit from this. So now there's only so much there is, right? There's the Senate has a $10 billion annual ceiling. The House at the moment now that's down to $5 billion a year. So those bills are going to have to be reconciled in the legislative process over the next 7 weeks or so. And it's likely that'll happen. But again, we just take it one day at a time. It's a long, arduous process, as you know, legislation is. So, but the truth of the matter is the donors do not benefit. They contribute, they get back what they contributed. They don't profit. Their financial position is neutral. So the only way you get the quote tax break is by donating your money to help somebody else's child. You can't help your own legally. You can't, you're not getting anything tangible in return. It's simply a feel-good proposition of donating and getting something back. So yes, you pay that, you would lose that money in lieu of paying taxes because it's a credit, dollar for dollar credit, but there's nothing, you're not getting a tangible asset. You're not benefiting your own student, going to college or something like that. So, and quite honestly, we want wealthy people stepping up because in effect, it's a redistribution of their income to help modestly income families have access to a better education.
Speaking to Peter Murphy about the Educational Choice for Children Act, a proposal at the federal level in the U.S. Congress and Senate. Peter, given what you just said there, and given the fact that universal school choice has been enjoying quite the run in the states over the last 2 years. I think we're up to 16 or 17 states that have passed some sort of universal school choice. Missouri, for the first time ever, under the direction of Governor Kehoe, and the House appropriators this year appropriated $50 million to our education savings account. Peter, does this have any kind of bipartisan attraction, or are Democrats unfortunately just beholden to the education establishment and the NEA, or are there some brave school choice, parental choice Democrats who have jumped onto this bandwagon at all as well?
In Congress, that is sadly not the case. There are not a few Democrats in Congress who know this is a good thing, who have supported it at different points in their political careers, and I can give you names. My favorite example is Hakeem Jeffries, the House Democratic leader. I knew him when I worked in Albany, and he was a member of the state assembly from Brooklyn, and he was a go-to guy. He supported this very thing as an assemblyman. That is not the case now, not as far as we can tell. There's other members like that. But sadly, at least at the congressional level, at the federal level, the dogma of the party right now is, you support this at your political peril. And so they're all sort of kind of walking in lockstep and not supporting this, which, despite the fact that so many of their constituents benefit tangibly from this. I mean, think about being stuck in one of these crummy Brooklyn or Philadelphia or
St. Louis.
St. Louis, thank you. I mean, they're sadly everywhere, and not just, by the way, in these big urban neighborhoods, but they're all over the place. And we see that in the NAEP scores, the school report card, the nation's report card. The scores have gone down since 2019 in math and reading at middle and lower elementary education. And so you have this situation where they know this is the right thing. And not only is it good for the children who get the scholarships, but you've got now studies that have shown in a place like Florida, for instance, in Ohio, there's a study that came out recently about Ohio. You have studies in these school choice states that are documenting better outcomes for the children in the scholarship who get the scholarships, who get the school choice. But in Florida, there's a recent study that had public schools were doing better. because the competition is so much a fact of their lives now that wasn't before choice became more prevalent in that state. So they know better. They should be supporting it. It should be bipartisan. It should not be political. And ultimately, it helps the public education system, but more directly, it helps obviously the families that can access the choice.
And finally, Peter, I want to ask you, what do you say to critics who say that this tax credit indirectly supports religious schools and there could be a separation of church and state issue? How would you address that?
I'd say they're 23 years out of date in terms of the what the Constitution permits. The Constitution's First Amendment right is the free exercise of religion. It is the family or the parent's choice. They are the ones exercising it. The state's not choosing that. The state remains a neutral actor. That was the basis of the famous 2002 case in Ohio out of Cleveland, Zellman versus Simmons Harris, where the court affirmed that indeed it was a First Amendment free exercise. The government, in this case, it was the state of Ohio that was funding the vouchers, right? Very direct. This is indirect. This is funded by private money that's induced by a federal tax incentive, but it's private money that's funding this. But there in the voucher case, 23 years ago, that was a a state expenditure of money. And the court upheld that because the state wasn't picking religions. It wasn't favoring religions. It remained very neutral. Parents were exercising that. And so there is no constitutional case for this. We have freedom of religion in the country. Maybe not everybody likes that. Not everybody likes freedom of speech. Not everybody likes the Second Amendment. They are constitutional rights, and we shouldn't discriminate on any of those things. Everybody has their constitutional rights, and this is just simply consistent with that.
And that is Peter Murphy, Senior Advisor to the American Enterprise Institute's Invest in Education Coalition. You can get more information on investineducation.org. Peter, thank you so much for joining us, and hope to talk to you again soon.
Chris and Tim, thanks so much for having me. Great to talk to you tonight.
Great to talk to you. All right, investineducation.org. Man, Tim, I've never seen anything like this, man. The school choice movement is on fire, and I think the pandemic helped light that fire.
Indeed. Yeah, Chris, it was it's funny. Isn't that funny, Chris? It's kind of, government was the one that tried to crush us all during the COVID years. And they ended up basically sparking this school choice, parental choice movement, which is now exploding all across the nation.
And I talked about this during the pandemic, that the largest growth of homeschoolers was in the African-American community. That is very encouraging. All right, one final segment. We'll talk about regional accents are disappearing. And Tim, we're going to have the Jeopardy music going. We're going to find out if you know who was president when electricity was first installed in the White House. You're listening to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show on 101.9 94.1 News Talk STL.
Come on, children. Butter your popcorn. Come on, children. It's your popcorn,
It's the Tim
baby.
Jones and Chris Arps Show.
I know you dig it, baby.
My
Now,
pronouns are kiss
come
my
on,
ass.
don't you? Little boy black, come on. Come and blow.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm First Alert 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton. This evening, a spot shower or sprinkle, not out of the question, but most are going to stay dry and warm. Overnight, a low of 69 degrees, mostly sunny in the morning. A hot day Thursday, a high of 92. The record's 94 from 1944. There is a slight chance for an isolated storm in the evening, mainly east and southeast of St. Louis. Between about 5 to 9 p.m., we'll watch for that. Storms may not even pop, but if they do, it could be strong. Again, mainly south and east of St. Louis. Otherwise, Friday is a First Alert weather day with our better chance for storms. Dry in the morning, but a high of 89 and scattered storms in the afternoon that could be severe, anywhere from 1 to 8 p.m. Be on guard for severe threat Friday. That's the latest from the First Alert 4 Weather Center. I'm Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
The Vic Porcelli Show.
Every police officer in America should have a bulletproof vest. That's what Invest.org does every single day. Michael Letts, the founder and president, will join us Thursday at 9:41.
Weekday mornings at 9 on News Talk STL.
Got any aches and pains? How many aches and pains do you have? You know where I can send you right now to get them cleaned up, cleared up, lickety split, and have you feeling better with a better you. Comprehensive Chiropractic. Comprehensive Chiropractic in my beautiful hometown of Eureka, Missouri. Easy to get to from anywhere in the St. Louis region. People do travel there from all over the place. You can check them out right now and 24/7 at chiropractic.com. That's chiropractic.com. Comprehensive Chiropractic, the premier chiropractic and sports performance facility in our region. They have assisted me. I have been a personal patient of doctors Fader, Gorman, and Benton. I try all the docs out there so I can tell you all about them in case you end up with one or the other. Docs Fader, Gorman, Benton, and I know they have a couple others there as well, and they have a lot of other healthcare professionals there as well. They're all fantastic people. I love speaking. They're so friendly from the moment you walk in the door. They spend time with you. They want to know, how are you feeling? Anything new? What's up with the old stuff? What can we help you with today? Now, when you get through the foundational building blocks of the chiropractic treatments and they got you all straightened out there, they have other things for you to investigate and check out. They got the studio upstairs, the Health and Wellness Center, located on the top floor. Beautiful space. They have Pilates and yoga classes, certified experienced instructors, small classes for personal attention. As I mentioned, a beautiful and peaceful atmosphere. They have massage therapists, licensed massage therapists. Yes, it is a fantastic feeling to have that massage therapy done. It's also an important building block of building a better holistic you. Do you need more extensive attention? Are you just like, oh boy, I've let the old body go? Well, they have no fear. Comprehensive Chiropractic is here. They can give you a personal training program that is extremely affordable and reasonable and will help you achieve the results you want. They're really fantastic. They recently helped me out with, I had a nagging elbow injury and I didn't tell them about it for a while. And then I'm like, okay, doc, and you know what? I wish I would have told them sooner. They fixed me up lickety split with some special treatment options that are available to you, all of you as well. Comprehensive Chiropractic, 24/7 at chiropractic.com. Comprehensive Chiropractic, chiropractic.com. Comprehensive Chiropractic for all your comprehensive healthcare needs.
Hey, News Talk STL listeners, this is Levi, CEO of Reach Reproductive Health. There was a huge gap left when the biggest pregnancy center in St. Louis had to close their doors right after Amendment 3. But by God's grace and power, Reach has been able to step into that space. We have acquired Thrive centers and are continuing operations in greater St. Louis. I have a request for you. Would you pray and consider getting to know Reach more? We are here to see babies saved and families transformed by the power of Christ. Get to know us on our Reach community website, outreachforlife.org. That's outreachforlife.org.
Hey, Tony Colombo here, inviting you to the Bluff City Outdoors Show Fishing Pentathlon, a one-of-a-kind multi-species fishing tournament Sunday, June 8th at Carlisle Lake. There'll be several side pods, but to win, your team has to catch all 5 species of fish with the highest total weight. This unique tournament gives fishermen of all levels a chance to walk away a winner. Get more info and reserve your spot now by going to BluffCityOutdoors.com and searching tournament entry, or just go to the events tab on the Bluff City Outdoors Facebook page. The Fishing Pentathlon, brought to you by Great Harvest Bread Company in Maplewood.
Attention gun owners, this is your last chance to enter to win the ultimate firearms adventure, the Gun Show's annual machine gun shoot and tank ride. The big St. Charles County Gun Show in May is your final opportunity to be entered into this exclusive drawing. Experience an unforgettable Saturday shooting machine guns and the thrill of riding an authentic military tank. It's all at the big St. Charles County Gun Show, May 16, 17, and 18. Your last chance to win the Gun Show's annual machine gun shoot and tank ride. Go to bkpromotions.us for more information.
Popcorn, baby.
Come on, baby.
Popcorn, baby.
Let's do the popcorn.
Popcorn, baby.
Oh, do it to death.
Popcorn, baby.
It's the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show.
This has been a very interesting couple of hours. The trade is Kelly's telling me from Boeing, it's the largest order of jets in the history of Boeing. That's pretty good. Was that a 140 or 160? Yeah, but you're right. It's actually 200, including the 40. So it's over $200 billion. But 160 in terms of the jets. That's fantastic. So that's a record, Kelly. And congratulations to Boeing. Get those planes out there.
5:49 on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show. And Tim, I don't know about you. I had no idea there were so many pop soul records that have been recorded. Did you know there were that many popcorn songs?
No, but executive producer extraordinaire Joey V apparently does, and he has wowed us with all of them throughout the show today. It's been fantastic.
One of these songs I was going to ask him about, it was 2 segments back, but I was like, man, I'm sure this song was scandalous back in the day when it came out. It talked about the ones greasy, sticky, and gooey. I mean, that was scandalous in the 60s or early 50s, I would think, to have that type of verbiage in a song. What do you think, Tim?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Gooey,
yeah,
sticky, and
that's
greasy?
a little risque for back in the day, isn't
That's
it?
why,
Yeah,
that's why it
indeed.
surprised me when I heard that. Let's just go ahead and get to it, Tim. Who do you think was the first president to have the use of electricity in the White House? I'll even give you the date to help you even more. The Edison Company installed electricity in the White House in 1891. So there's your hint, 1891. I will give you another hint. It is an obscure president, but I think no, this was another person. Never mind. Benjamin Pierce, President Benjamin Pierce is in relation to Barbara Pierce Bush. They are relatives. I thought this person was that person, but it's not. All right, Tim. Joe, you got the Jeopardy music there ready to go?
Couldn't get the rights. The name of the song is called Think, and it goes like
all right. Oh, you're gonna do it? Okay. All right, we're gonna cut it down to about 10 seconds. You got 5 seconds to go.
Don't want to get sued or anything. Yeah.
10, 4, 3,
Let's do
2, 1.
Let's do I'm gonna go with
Obscure.
Harding.
No, I think Harding was in the 20th century, wasn't he? If I know, I'm not that much of a scholar. It was Benjamin Harrison.
I was seriously, that was my second guess. I was gonna say it was William Benjamin Harrison, right? I was
Benjamin
gonna
Harrison.
go with
Boy,
that.
did he make any distinction in his presidency that you can think of besides being president? What is he noted for, if anything?
Being there. I don't know. Yeah, I can't think of anything.
Yeah.
What was it? The 1890s? I guess those were
1890s,
relatively quiet times.
Didn't we
right?
think like
Generally?
the ship off of Cuba back then? Was that around 1890s? The war between Cuba and the United States and Spain? I don't know. I should know that history.
We're decades after the Civil War. We're decades after Reconstruction. We're decades before World War I. Maybe they were relatively quieter times. I don't know. I wasn't there.
Tim, let me ask you this. When you travel out of town or you see your relatives that live in another state, another region of the country, do they say that you have an accent? Have you heard that from any relatives or from people?
So when I was in New York, I was told that generally one of the funniest things that someone ever said to me, one of my New Yorker friends who did have an accent, said to me, "You speak normal." They actually said that.
Yeah.
They said you speak normal, except a couple of words. Chris, do you ever get this? The 2 words they would always test me on were the substance that comes out from a cow.
Right.
Okay.
Oh,
How do you say that?
I say
How do you
milk,
say it?
but my pastor says it how I think you're going to say it. I've heard him say it. How do you say? Go ahead.
They say that the way I said it sounded like milk.
That's how my
Like
pastor
milk.
says it.
Yeah. And you're supposed to say, apparently I didn't
Pastor.
shorten the I enough. And I'm supposed to say, like you just said it, I'm supposed to say milk.
Yeah.
Milk. I say more milk, right?
Yeah.
And then the second one, how do you say the fruit, the citrus fruit that you have to peel that comes in slices that we make the juice from?
Now, I know
In Florida.
someone in St. Louis would say like kind of an orange, but I say orange.
Yes.
Orange.
Right. Well, the New Yorkers say that the proper, according to them,
Yeah,
with their
according to
goofy
them.
accents, they'd say it's supposed to be like orange. They say orange. You're supposed to say orange, not orange. I don't know. I think that one's up for grabs. But no, except for Chris, a couple of random words like that, they always would say, yeah, you speak normal. You speak flat. Like you don't have an accent. Now, I do know what was weird was having lived in New York for nearly a decade, when I came home, I would hear the differences, like with some words Suzanne would say, or some words my parents would say, or my friends. I would hear the dialect, but just barely. And now I don't hear it anymore because I've been back for so long. Yeah, go ahead. No, yeah. So in general, I think we in St. Louis have a pretty flat accent, But Chris, as you know, you go a little south of here. Like I have a very good friend who lives in Eureka, former law partner, Joy. She's from Sykeston. Chris, you would have thought that she was raised down in the fields in the South. I mean, Joy has got that twangy Southern accent from Sykeston. That's only like an hour and a half, 2 hours away. And Joy to this very day has a thick accent, and we tease her about it all.
And you really don't have to go that far. I've said for years, you could go about 20 minutes outside of St. Charles County, and you would think you are in the South. The accents change very quickly. Well, according to this study, it says as people move across America for work in the late 20th century, our regional accents started to disappear. And I've been told that I have kind of a Southern accent when I kind of leave. I don't hear it. It says now we sound more and more the same. A series of research papers published in December documented the diminishment of the Southern accent among Black residents of the Atlanta area, while working class people in the New Orleans area and people who grew up in Raleigh, North Carolina. The intrigue, the Southern twang has been replaced among youngest speakers in the 20th century with a dialect that was first noticed in California in the late 1980s, according to the researchers. The dialect was also detected in Canada, and it's become a pan-regional accent as it has spread to other parts of the U.S., including Boston, New York, and Michigan. Come on. Boston, you know how heavy the Boston accent is. Tim, you lived in New York. New York's a very thick accent. Michigan, they say they're ours. They say karch and ir. They're very pronounced like that. I find it very hard that those accents in New York, Michigan, and Boston are receding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know that they are because I have a lot of friends that say park the car in the garage and all that and so forth. And there's a lot of thick. And you know what's funny? I'm not picking on them. I'm not picking on them at all. But the ladies, especially out on Long Island, I noticed that they had a lot deeper. Hey, look, what about the nanny, right? Fran Drescher, you know, man, how is this with the mostest? You know,
Brooklyn sounding voice.
Yeah. I noticed the ladies had a more nasal overtone. Hey, Chris, final update from Jefferson City.
Yes.
The pro-life bill has been PQ'd. The filibuster has been broken. The bill has passed. The Prop A fix has been broken on the filibuster. It has passed. And Chris, the Missouri Senate has adjourned for the year. The place has burned to the ground, but not before two huge Republican priorities. The first PQs, Chris, in 7 years.
And you heard it here on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show. The latest breaking news in the legislature. Larry Connors USA is up next. Larry's going to talk about Trump deals with a man who had a $10 million bounty on his head. You've been listening to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show on 101.9, 94.1 News Talk STL. Drive safe and have a great evening.
Hey, want to amaze your friends when they visit? They'll be impressed when they see your custom-made draperies, blinds, or shutters. Michael Proctor will personally help you select the correct colors to truly showcase your home. Then he will actually design, personally install everything. No overhead markup. That's going to save you money on draperies, blinds, or shutters.
Call for an appointment at your home. Spell Proctor like doctor.
Hey, it's Vic Porcelli here with our great friend Chris Cooper from Serenity